First Peter chapter 2. It says, "Wherefore, laying aside all malice, all guile and hypocrisies and envies and all evil speakings, as newborn babes, you were one once, desire the sincere milk of the word, that you may grow thereby." I think this is a reflection of Psalm 123 of just, Father, what is of spirit that we can have down into our hearts and desire it that sincerely. Babes that are hungry, they will cry tears to get in until they can get what they want. And that's, I think, the effort, that you cannot be so lulled asleep to that God's using this as an example, that you have it in you, folks, or you need to go there to elicit that depth of hunger for righteousness, for food, for substance, for pursuing God. I think that's back down to what John Mast read, Romans 4. This is, in verse 3, "If so be you have tasted that the Lord is gracious, to whom coming as unto a living stone, disallowed indeed of men, but chosen of God and precious." Here you are, verse 5, "You also," say, "me also, as lively stones, are built up a spiritual house and a holy priesthood, to offer up spiritual sacrifice as acceptable to God by Jesus Christ." Who else is a lively stone? You looking at it. Now, what is a lively stone? I had to think about this. I had to think about the ancient world, like to this day, they still do not know how they created the Pyramid of Giza. These stones that you can find through many places around the world, huge stones that were moved. Something spoke to these cultures to do something with big rocks. I mean, and I'm going to say that I think even when you look at how some of these stones are actually formed and moved, and I mean, we would look at it today and still scratch our heads. How did this stuff happen? These structures, you can do all the research yourself. Today, it is not, in our day and age, possible to do what they did back then. There's something about moving around big old rocks and making them look like they had purpose. And you could find it, like I said, multiple cultures around. There's something about the word stone, lively, that the Lord wanted to use, but then there's this integration of lively. I tried to sit on that and try to figure that out for a while. What does that mean? All rocks are dead, right? Like there's not even life in it. There's nothing in it. But to merge the word lively with a stone, well, let's take the attributes of a stone. And particularly, some of them would, that are, not possible by human standards today, would fill this room. And that they were moving them and whatnot. So my point is, let's merge What is some of the adjectives or what are the attributes of like a big monument? Well, it's to set in motion a statement. It stands out. It catches your eye from a distance. It's used for foundation. You can't move it. You ever tried to move something that was too heavy for you? Immovable. The Lord was prophesied that he would be this level of force in humanity, but a lively one. So, can you imagine taking life and putting it inside some kind of monolith, right? Like, how can you bring a rock? How can you bring a big stone to life? That's the miracle. The analogy here is taking what is completely unable to raise itself to have life and effort, is then given, as the scriptures say in the New Testament, Zoe. And then you're called to be lively stones as well. Well, what is the characteristics of a lively stone? Peace, righteousness, sincere milk of the word brings about inside you the characteristics of God. That is immovable. When you're at peace, it is immovable. You're a monolith, folks. By the Spirit of God, you are intended to fulfill what he did in being immovable in your generations, not into, well, I want to tell you, iniquity has its own stone. I'll read some scriptures to you. By the way, Jesus quoted Psalm 118 when it had to do with this idea of being a lively stone. Psalm 118. The stone which the builders refused is become the headstone of the corner. This is the Lord's doing and is marvelous in our eyes. He quotes that in Matthew 21. Who rejected him? Well, it's not just the Israelites and the Pharisees. It's anybody that does not allow the Spirit of God to raise them into Zoe, into this depths of being miraculously a living stone. I'm trying to find, what a third grader might have to think about when they're talking about a lively stone. They could probably describe it better because of the creativity there. But when you think about life inside something, it seems like such a contradiction to take a rock and to put life in it. That's what God did to you. He absolutely reversed what was completely dead from the womb and put life in it by his Spirit. Now, to let it become ongoing life, I think you got to be persuaded. I think you had to be persuaded that that was God's decision to replicate himself into you. And the conversion away from what was dead is the effort of receiving his forgiveness and appropriate, letting it be where there's the switch. You need to switch from death to life.